Thank you very much.
Hey, it's Coffin is Alive. I look at comic books new and old. Today I'm looking at the two newest issues of Uncanny X-Men and X-Men. We're looking at Uncanny number 11 and X-Men number 13. This is Legacy number 711 and Legacy number 313, which I really wish, especially for these two titles specifically, they would just go back to the Legacy numbering. That's just me. But these are both part of the X-Manhunt crossover that's going on right now between the main X-Men titles. It's a 7-part miniseries, and these are parts 1 and parts 4. So Uncanny is part 1, which I'll be covering first. And we got Gail Simone as the writer on this issue, and Javier Garrón is the penciler. And we got David Marquez doing the cover on this issue. Two really killer covers on both of these issues, I think. We got Xavier entering the minds of all the X-Men here. Very spooky kind of cover here. And I like how these have the X-Manhunt logos at the top here. They remind me of those like Executioner's Song or Extinction Agenda logos, that branding logos they would have on the tops of those comics. That's what this one kind of reminds me of. X-Manhunt, not as cool of a title as some of the other X-Men crossovers of the past, though, but some great artwork in both of these issues. I definitely recommend picking these up just for the artwork, both of these issues. We get this really awesome splash page of this Shi'ar ship flying through space. There's this approaching spaceship that is claiming to be stranded, but we see that it's all a ruse. And this character, Elion, starts his own mutiny on the ship, and the distressed ship has all these other commandos who board it, and they start murdering the crew, and they're coming after Xandra, who is the daughter of Professor X and Lilandra, and the niece of Deathbird. And Deathbird is like in charge of security here in the Shi'ar Empire, so she's trying to protect her niece. Cool splash page there of Deathbird. Then we're back at Greymalkin Prison, and we're learning about what's going on with Xavier, as he, at the end of the raid on Greymalkin, decided to stay in prison, which was my whole criticism leading up to this storyline, this X-Manhunt, was that he just decided to stay in prison, but this whole storyline is about him breaking out of prison, which I thought was weird, you know, just from the previews. But reading the issue, it all does make sense in context what happens here. So, well, first of all, we find out there's like some sort of virus that's going around making all the employees at Greymalkin sick. And Xavier's crying, and we see this guy too who's watching Xavier here on the monitor, Bob here. He's like sweating, and I think he might be sick too, or maybe he's just sweating because he's got Dr. Ellis looking over his shoulder there. But Xavier's crying because he's telepathically watching everything going on the Shi'ar ship. And he's kind of losing it. So they decide to sedate him, and they do it right at the moment that he's watching all of these commandos bust in and capture Xandra. So then we head back to the X-Men here at the Haven House. This is Rogue's team. They're in Louisiana. We get some training, as X-Men always do. They've got their makeshift danger room out in the yard here. Love the armpit hair on Logan there. Logan basically acting like a father figure, or maybe like an uncle to all these new X-Men. But Rogue and Gambit don't think that they're training hard enough. So with just a flick of the wrist, Gambit takes out Jitter, one of the new ones, and tries to teach them a lesson that they're just not training quite hard enough here. That's pretty much all that goes on this section of the book here. There's the horse even looks at Rogue and Gambit though, like, you had to do them like that? Come on. Which is kind of funny. And then Rogue gets a call from Gray Malkin, and they're requested at Gray Malkin prison by Dr. Ellis. And then we see kind of another weird subplot that I think might have to do with the virus we heard about earlier infecting everybody who works at Gray Malkin. And we see this one Gray Malkin guard who is kind of losing his mind. He looks at all of his family and he sees them all as sentinels. And then we see this kind of really cool panel where it's like all colored in red and it's not bordered like all the other panels. And his family's like, "Sweetie, are you all right?" And he says, "Sorry, I'm so sorry." And then the person walking by is wearing headphones too. So you can kind of assume what's happening, but there's no sound effects. So a really kind of creepy, but really interesting page here. You can guess what happens. There's definitely some sort of weird mind control virus going on, infecting all the guards in Gray Malkin. And Sarah Gaunt, who was the villain of the first few issues of this Uncanny X-Men book, and she's got a past connection with Charles Xavier. She's also in the prison. And she's able to break Xavier out because they have telepathic connection to each other. Right as the X-Men have arrived to the prison, as they were summoned earlier. And in a really cool panel here, as we see these Rogue's X-Men here, all in the original X-Men outfits. We've got Rogue and Nightcrawler here. Gambit looking like Angel. Jubilee as Cyclops, which is really cool. And Wolverine as Beast, which is a perfect fit. This is all in Xavier's mind, of course. And then we actually get a battle here between Xavier and the X-Men, looking like the original X-Men. I really like this. This is some really fun stuff here. Xavier traps Nightcrawler halfway through teleporting. He's really more powerful than all of them. He screams enough, kind of psychically blasting all of them. I like that panel down there too. And then he says, "It doesn't matter. All that matters is I need to rescue my daughter, Xandra Empress. Daddy's coming." And he walks out the side of the prison here. Now I got X-Men issue number 13 here. Part 4 of the X-Manhunt. Got Ryan Stegman on the cover. Another awesome cover. This X-Men line has been killing it on the Ryan Stegman covers. This one's kind of almost like Storm. She's electrocuting all the mutants here. It's like in the cartoons when you see someone get electrocuted and you just see their skeleton. That's what this kind of reminds me of. So in that last issue of Uncanny X-Men, we had the X-Men kind of battling Xavier. And in this issue, we've got Cyclops' team battling Storm. So another battle of X-Men versus X-Men. Some really great artwork in here. We've got Nitho Diaz doing the interiors. And we've got a psychic battle between Kid Omega and Professor X as well. I like that Professor X is pretty much a villain in this whole storyline. He had been kind of building up to that all through the Age of Krakoa, and we never really got a full-on, X-Men versus Professor X thing happening, and we're kind of getting that here. And we get a battle between Storm and Juggernaut, and this is awesome. These pages are really, really great. I love this Juggernaut face here. But he's basically just bowing up to Storm, saying like, "Come at it then, lady." We've got some of the other X-Men who aren't battle ready, kind of watching on here, when Magic just shows up and yanks off Magneto's helmet. And she puts it on Beast, who had been mind controlled, so they're able to get Beast back on their side. And there's a whole bunch of stuff that happened in between part 1 and part 4 here. Obviously, like that whole plot with Xavier looking for his daughter Xandra is not even really brought up here at all. So, and I'm not exactly sure of Xavier's motivations, so I may have to go back and read that issue of NYX and Storm. But this psychic battle between Xavier and Kid Omega here is just really cool because it's done in a different art style. It's still the same artist, Nitho Diaz, you can tell, but it's just inked differently, it seems like, or colored differently. It almost looks like colored pencils. I'm not sure exactly how they did it, but Xavier's overwhelming Kid Omega here in this psychic projection where they're in class. As you can see, there's just like normal, darker comic book inks when they're not in the psychic battle here. So we've got Storm battling Magic. She says, "Oh, you like swords, huh?" We've got all the X-Men flying at Storm, who's also being mind controlled. So then we get an homage to the Mark Silvestri cover of Wolverine on the Giant X on the Mountain of Skulls, although these are just rocks here on this depiction of it, but really awesome. I love the green coloring here in the back of the X there. Nitho Diaz draws some of my favorite hands. He's like one of my favorite hand artists. I always notice that he's just always got really cool hand poses. So I wanted to show off a couple pages where there are a bunch of cool hand poses. Oh, it's on this page actually, like Storm's hands here. Or like Juggernaut digging into the ground. So Maggot, who is an X-Men you may or may not be familiar with, he doesn't show up in this issue except that he's in this cocoon, and Psylocke basically threatens to stab him if Storm doesn't stop what she's doing, which does basically bring her back to her senses. And Kid Omega is able to use some sort of psychic projection he has of Cassandra Nova to stop Xavier, and you see her put her fingers like right through his head like she does in the Deadpool Wolverine movie there. And there's all these bugs like vomiting out of her mouth. So Xavier takes his own helmet off and they put the Magneto helmet on him and they sedate him quickly and they're able to secure Xavier. And Storm is back to normal. As you can see, she somehow had an outfit change, switching back to normal, which is funny. Cyclops, who got taken out in a previous issue somehow, he's stirring again. He sees that their team has succeeded in securing Xavier, when right at that moment, X-Factor shows up and says, "We'll take it from here." And this continues in X-Factor number 8. So I gotta definitely recommend these issues. They were very cool issues. I didn't expect them to be this good, and I wasn't really looking forward to this X-Manhunt storyline, but there's a lot going on, some cool artwork. So go check it out. And thanks again for watching. Go check out my channel if you haven't yet. I post daily comic book reviews. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Go read comics.